Okay, so today we're going to be reviewing volume of a cone, volume of a cylinder, volume of a sphere. So remember, we had already gone over all of this before spring break, but we are just going to review it, make sure we all know what to do. So we're just going to go back over the formulas, go through these examples, and then you'll have some practice problems to do. So let's first go back over the formulas. Okay, because remember the formulas are different. We modified them from what they are listed as here on this formula chart. Remember we, instead of the capital B, we used pi r squared. So we're gonna go back through all of that, make sure we know what formulas we should be using. So let's start with, so right up here we've got volume of a cone. So let's start with volume of a cone. So we use the same formula for pyramid, but it also is the same formula for the volume of a cone. So remember we wrote it as capital B times H divided by 3. Now, remember we talked about capital B is area of the base, but look at your cone. The base is a circle, okay? So we're gonna go ahead, we'll write it as what it's written as on the formula chart. Capital B times H divided by 3. But we know capital B is area of the base, and the base is a circle. So remember, that's why we had to use the pi r squared, because that is the formula for area of a circle, area of the base. So instead of the capital B, remember we used the pi r squared in place of capital B, and then we still multiplied by the height, and then we still divided by 3. So when we are writing this formula, I want us to continue writing it like this, pi r squared h divided by 3, just so we do not get confused. All right, let's go ahead and solve this example, and then we will then go on to cylinders and then go on to spheres. So let's go ahead and look at this first example. So this is the formula we're going to be using. So we know pi is just a number, 3.14. The r, remember, stands for radius. Radius is halfway across a circle. So looking at the base, the circle as the base, do you see this 6 feet? That is not the radius. That line, the 6 feet, is showing us that that line goes all the way across the circle from one side to the other. So this is the diameter of the circle. So in order for us to find the radius before we even plug numbers into our formula, we need to know what the radius is, and that is half of the diameter. So our radius is actually going to be 3 feet. So remember, you always have to do that first before you plug numbers in. So now we are ready to plug numbers into our formula. So our formula is pi times r squared times h divided by 3. All right. So pi is 3.14, so we'll go ahead and write that out. We're going to multiply by the radius squared, so the radius is 3, and remember squared is an exponent, not times 2. And then the height, looking at the cone, the height, remember, is from the base to the tip of the cone. So that's 7 feet is our height. We're going to multiply all that together and divide by 3. So let's go ahead and plug numbers into our formula, or into our calculator. All right, so we've got 3.14 times 3 squared. Now, I have the same calculator that we have at school, but if you don't, your phone calculator will have the squared, the exponent, but if it doesn't, remember 3 squared is just 3 times itself, so you can just put in 9 if you want to. Times 7, all divided by 3. Okay, so 65.94. 65.94, and this is volume, so feet cubed. Okay, all right, now let's move on to volume of a cylinder. So remember we talked about, here is our cylinder, so let's look at our formula chart. Okay, so volume of a cylinder is the same formula that we use for volume of a prism. So it's still capital B times H, area of the base times the height, but we modified it again because, looking at our shape, if we go ahead and write it here, Remember, we modified it because the base of a cylinder is a circle. The base of the cylinder is a circle. So instead of the capital B, just like what we did over here, instead of the capital B, we need to use the pi r squared for area of a circle because that is the base. So I'm going to write down our modified formula right down here, pi r squared times the height. And then for cylinders, we do not divide by 3. So it's just pi times radius squared times the height. Okay, so looking at this example right here. So looking at the circle, this 4 inches is the radius. We do not need to find the radius like we did on this first problem. They're already giving us what the radius is. So we are just going to go ahead and plug numbers into our formula. So we've got pi 3.14 times radius squared, or 4 squared. Okay, and then looking at the 24, okay, so the 24 does not look like how tall the cylinder is, but we talked about in a cylinder, the height is the distance between the two bases. So looking at the two circles, 24 is the distance between those two circles. So that is our height. So if you were to take the cylinder and stand it up on the circles, then it would look like the 24 is the height. So pi times radius squared times height. So let's go ahead and plug it in our calculator. 3.14 times 4 squared times 24. And remember, we do not divide by 3, so that is our answer. 1,205 and 76/100. All right, and this is inches cubed. Very good. Okay, one more. So we've got a sphere last, a whole sphere. So looking at our formula chart, so volume of a sphere has its own formula. So it is written as 4/3 times pi times radius cubed. We have a different exponent now. But remember, we made it easier on ourselves and we wrote our formula like this. 4 pi r cubed, all divided by 3. So that's the formula that I want us to write right here. So volume equals 4 times pi times radius cubed, remember not squared, all divided by 3, okay? So let's go ahead and look at our shape, look at our sphere. Look at the 18 meters right here. It goes from one edge of the circle to the other edge of the circle. So that is not the radius, that is the diameter that they're giving us. So we are not going to use 18 in our formula because our formula needs radius. This is the diameter, so in order to find the radius, we need to divide 18 by 2. So 18 divided by 2 is 9. So the radius that we're going to be using in this equation, or in this formula, is 9 meters. So once we do that, then we can go ahead and plug numbers in. So we've got 4 times pi is 3.14, times radius cubed, all divided by 3. Okay, let's plug it in. All right, 4 times pi times radius, or 9 cubed. Now, if you don't have a calculator like this, again, you can, in your regular calculator, if your calculator doesn't have a cubed, then you can just type in 9 times 9 times 9, and then put that number into your calculator. But I'm going to do 9 to the 3rd power divided by 3. All right, so we should get 3,052 and 8/100. 3,052 and 8/100 meters cubed. Very good.